Most people work their entire lives for money, but the wealthy build systems where money works for them. This single difference explains why some people spend decades trapped in the rat race, while others quietly build financial independence. The strange part is this: both groups often earn similar incomes. They live in the same cities. They have access to the same opportunities. Yet their financial outcomes look completely different. Why? In his best-selling book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki argues that the difference is not income. It is financial education. The book has sold more than 30 million copies worldwide and has fundamentally changed how millions of people think about wealth. Inside it are several ideas that completely reframe how money actually works. Ideas about assets, cash flow, taxes, opportunity, and the psychology that keeps most people financially stuck. From these ideas, we can extract several powerful financial blueprints. Kiyosaki's central argument is simple. Most people struggle financially not because they earn too little, but because they think about money the wrong way. They work for money instead of making money work for them. They accumulate liabilities they believe are assets. They trade time for income, but never build systems that generate wealth independently. The traditional financial path looks something like this: go to school, get a stable job, buy a house, work for 40 years, retire. But Kiyosaki asks a simple question: what if this path was never designed to make you wealthy in the first place? What if financial independence requires a completely different way of thinking? That question leads us to the core ideas of the book. Blueprint 1: the fundamental lesson. Assets versus liabilities. This is the central lesson of the entire book. Rich Dad's most important teaching is deceptively simple. The rich buy assets, the poor and middle class buy liabilities, and believe they are assets. Kiyosaki defines an asset as something that puts money into your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. By this definition, many purchases people consider investments are actually expenses. A primary residence, for example, often generates no income. Instead, it produces ongoing costs: mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, maintenance. From a strict cash flow perspective, the house consumes money rather than producing it. A rental property generating positive income is an asset. A dividend-paying stock portfolio is an asset. A business that runs independently of your time is an asset. The structural takeaway is this: most people spend decades accumulating things that look like wealth but function like expenses. The wealthy focus on something different: assets that produce cash flow. Blueprint 2: the rat race and the cash flow quadrant. There is a pattern Kiyosaki calls the rat race. It works like this: you get a job. Your income rises. Your lifestyle rises to match it. Your expenses expand to consume whatever you earn. You need the job to maintain the lifestyle. You need a raise to get ahead, but the raise gets absorbed by new expenses, and the cycle continues. The rat race is not a failure of discipline. It is a structural problem. The middle class is caught between two forces: income that depends on their time, and expenses that grow to match that income. The result is that no matter how much they earn, they never build the financial foundation to leave. Kiyosaki frames this through what he calls the cash flow quadrant. There are 4 types of economic actors: the employee, who trades time for a salary and depends entirely on their employer; the self-employed, who owns a job rather than a business. If they stop working, the income stops; the business owner, who builds systems that generate income with or without their direct involvement; and the investor, whose money works for them, compounding capital across assets they own but may never touch directly. The left side of the quadrant trades time for money. The right side builds systems and capital that generate money independently. What we can learn from this is structural. The goal is not simply to earn more. The goal is to migrate from the left side of the quadrant to the right, to build income streams that do not require your constant presence. That migration requires a different kind of thinking, and it starts with financial education. Blueprint 3: mind your own business. Kiyosaki makes a distinction that most people never consider. Your profession is not your business. Your business is your asset column. Most people spend their entire careers building someone else's asset column, working to generate revenue for a company that captures the surplus value of their labor. They are compensated with a salary. The company is compensated with equity. The lesson Kiyosaki draws from Rich Dad is this: keep your day job if you need it, but start building your own asset column on the side. Real estate, stocks, a small business, intellectual property. Something that generates value beyond your personal labor. The key principle is this: your real financial work is not your employment. It is the construction of a personal balance sheet that grows independently of your salary. Most people measure their financial success by their income. The wealthier you want to become, the more important it is to measure your success by your asset base, the total value of things you own that generate income without your direct effort. This reveals something important about how financial independence is actually built. It is not accumulated through savings alone. It is built through the steady, deliberate acquisition of income-producing assets, one at a time over many years. Blueprint 4: The History of Taxes and the Power of Corporations. Kiyosaki spends considerable time on a point that surprises many readers. The wealthy do not primarily use their personal income to build wealth. They use corporate and legal structures to do so. Here is the structural insight. An employee earns money, pays taxes, and then spends what remains. A corporation earns money, spends on business expenses, and then pays taxes on what remains, if anything. The difference in sequencing is enormously significant over time. Businesses can deduct expenses, travel, equipment, education, offices, before they are taxed. Employees cannot. This is one of the primary structural advantages the wealthy use to retain and compound capital that employees never have access to. Kiyosaki is not advocating for illegal tax evasion. He is pointing to a structural reality. Financial literacy allows individuals to use legal vehicles, corporations, LLCs, trusts, to manage their tax burden in ways that employees simply cannot. The structural takeaway is this: understanding the rules of the financial system gives you access to tools that most people never know exist. The wealthy do not simply earn more. They operate within legal frameworks that allow them to retain, reinvest, and compound more of what they earn. Financial education, in this context, is not just about mindset. It is about understanding the actual mechanics of how money moves through legal and economic systems, and using that understanding strategically. Blueprint 5: The Rich Invent Money. One of the more provocative ideas in the book is this: financial opportunity is not found, it is created. Kiyosaki argues that most people wait for opportunity to arrive. They wait for the right job, the right market conditions, the right moment to invest. The financially educated, by contrast, create opportunities through knowledge, relationships, and creative thinking. He gives examples from real estate, buying distressed properties below market value, restructuring them, and selling or renting at a premium. The opportunity was not obvious to most observers. It was visible only to those with the knowledge to recognize it and the skills to execute on it. The same principle applies more broadly in investing. Warren Buffett did not wait for the market to hand him obvious bargains. He developed the analytical frameworks to identify value where others saw only risk or complexity. The opportunity was latent. It required expertise to unlock. What follows from this idea is that financial education is not passive. It is not simply reading about money. It is developing the skills, the judgment, and the network to see and act on opportunities that are invisible to the financially illiterate. The financially educated investor operates in a different information environment from the average person. They ask different questions, they evaluate differently, and they act when others hesitate, because their knowledge gives them confidence that the hesitant do not have. Blueprint 6: Overcoming Obstacles. Kiyosaki identifies 5 primary psychological obstacles that prevent financially educated people from acting on what they know. The first is fear. Fear of losing money, fear of looking foolish, fear of making the wrong decision. Kiyosaki does not say fear is irrational. Losing money is real, and it happens. His point is that the fear of loss, left unmanaged, becomes more costly than the losses themselves. The investor who never acts because they fear being wrong will never build anything. The second is cynicism, the internal critic that says the market is rigged, the opportunity is too good to be true, something will go wrong. Cynicism masquerades as intelligence. In reality, it is often a defense mechanism that protects the ego from the discomfort of risk. The third is laziness. Kiyosaki makes a counterintuitive observation. The busiest people are often the laziest about managing their financial lives. Being busy is, in many cases, a form of avoidance, an excuse to not confront the work of building financial independence. The fourth is bad habits. Paying yourself last, spending first, and saving what remains, if anything. Rich Dad teaches the opposite. Pay yourself first. Set aside investment capital before you pay your bills, your lifestyle, your discretionary spending. This forces discipline and prioritizes asset building over consumption. The fifth is arrogance, the belief that what you do not know does not matter. The wealthy make it a habit to educate themselves on what they do not understand before they dismiss it. The arrogant dismiss what they do not understand, and in doing so, close themselves off from information that could be financially decisive. The lesson here is not that the path to financial independence is easy. It is that the primary obstacles are internal and therefore within your control to address. Blueprint 7. Work to learn, not to earn. The final and perhaps most underappreciated blueprint in the book is this. The most important investment you can make is in the breadth of your own knowledge and skills. Kiyosaki argues that most people seek specialization. They become very good at one thing and they leverage that expertise for income. That strategy produces a good salary. It rarely produces financial independence. What Rich Dad recommended instead was this. Seek to understand how things work across multiple domains. Sales, management, accounting, law, investing, communication. Not to become an expert in all of them, but to understand them well enough to make informed decisions, build the right team, and recognize when you are being misled. The structural insight is this. A narrow specialist is vulnerable. They are dependent on the continued demand for their specific skill. A financially educated generalist, by contrast, can navigate across opportunities, identifying where value is being created and positioning themselves accordingly. Kiyosaki points to one skill above all others: sales. The ability to communicate value, to persuade, to build relationships. Without it, even the best ideas struggle to gain traction. With it, mediocre ideas can sometimes outperform brilliant ones. The lesson here is not to abandon your expertise. It is to invest deliberately in expanding your financial and managerial intelligence, because that intelligence compounds across every area of your life and your portfolio. Step back and look at everything we have covered. Rich Dad Poor Dad is not a book about getting rich quickly. It is a book about thinking differently, and it does so by exposing the gap between how most people are taught to think about money and how the financially independent actually operate. Blueprint 1 revealed the most fundamental distinction in all of personal finance: the difference between assets and liabilities. Most people spend their lives accumulating things that cost them money and calling them wealth. Blueprint 2 showed us the rat race, the structural trap that keeps income earners consuming as fast as they earn, and the cash flow quadrant, which maps the path from trading time for money to building systems that generate money independently. Blueprint 3 reminded us to mind our own business, to build our personal asset column with the same seriousness we bring to our professional careers. Blueprint 4 opened a window into the financial systems the wealthy use, legal structures, corporate vehicles, and tax strategies that are available to anyone with the knowledge to use them. Blueprint 5 challenged us to stop waiting for opportunity and start creating it through knowledge, creativity, and the confidence that financial education provides. Blueprint 6 confronted the psychological obstacles that prevent action: fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance. The path to financial independence requires managing not just your money, but your mind. And Blueprint 7 called us to invest in ourselves, not narrowly, but broadly, to develop the financial intelligence that compounds across every decision we make. The overarching message of Rich Dad Poor Dad is not that you need to become a real estate developer or an entrepreneur. It is that financial literacy is a form of power, and the absence of it is a form of vulnerability. The rules of money are learnable. The tools are accessible. The question is whether you choose to understand them, or whether you leave that responsibility to someone else. Most people leave it to someone else. That is why the gap between the financially educated and the financially illiterate continues to widen. And that is your financial blueprint. If you found this analysis valuable, leave a like and comment. It helps the video reach more people who care about long-term financial thinking. And subscribe to the Finance Blueprint for more structured breakdowns of the world's most important financial ideas.